In this video, I'll be showing gameplay I took during the tests of every class, where I talk about their identity as I play. The last part of the video is me talking over all the feedback I submitted for the second test on classes, economy, and party play. Priest was the worst class in the test by far, so I'll start with that. So in order to demonstrate Priest, you need to use Priest on Undead, but this is what Shining Ray does against these monsters which I've been testing with a lot. Here is Energy Bolts in comparison, also max. And here's Magic Claw as well. And then Holy Arrow, which was actually a good change. It can actually be used for mobbing and it has pretty good DPS. As you see here, but Shining Ray having the same multiplier or base attack as Energy Bolts. Does it have the exact same? As you can see, sucks on regular monsters. And the attack range is a lot lower. I think this was originally how it was versus Ice Lightning, which can hit vertically too. So I think the Ice Lightning attack range is 200%. That's fine if the massive damage to undead and demon targets is good. But in order to demonstrate that, I have to go to zombies and some other undead. First, we're going to take a look at heal. So heal no longer does a 200% recovery rate, so you'll do 100% damage, not 200%. And the worst part about heal, especially when using against monsters, is that there is a slight delay. So if you're holding down a heal, you'll only hurt the monster every third. So like 1, 2, and then 3. You hit it on 3. So there is one heal that will not hit the zombie due to a forced cooldown. So that feels pretty bad. I think the main reason why it feels bad, it feels like almost like a forced bug. Like a bug that the server is not registering that you're healing. It's to nerf the heal meta of spamming heal and barely using any potions except for MP potions. But I just feel like this mechanic, it feels like a bug, which feels really out of place. Even if you nerf the damage from 200% to 100%, I still feel like not being able to just spam heal, it just loses a lot of Priest's identity. And then the other problem is with Shining Ray. And as you can see, Shining Ray earlier did about 2.2k against those monsters, and now it does somewhere around 2.7. It definitely seems a bit weaker than the 220% in the original classic, but you would expect at level 100 Shining Ray, even with just base equipment, that you could at least one-shot these. And if you watch further in the video, you'll notice that other classes do just higher base damage. The idea is because Bishop was way too strong. I mean, Priest and Bishop were just way too strong. Undeniable, way too strong back then. But they did nerf it a bit too much now that they don't have any class identity and they're just some sort of like... I mean, you have Door, which works and is nice, but you don't really want to be a Door bot either. And then you have like Energy Bolts and Magic Claw doing pretty much like the same damage. And I don't know, you're just not destroying undead monsters like a priest would in like a fantasy setting. So that feels pretty bad. So first change, heal should at least tick. There should be no like tick reduction on heal. It just feels like an error or like a server bug. So it just feels like an odd way to nerf heal. I think it's not great at healing party members, but unfortunately I just don't have the time or friends to test that, so not sure. Apparently it's enough sustain, but still feels pretty weak. And Priest is in a tight spot because it is like the only support-based class, and any buffs would make it extremely strong. It's definitely going to be the most popular class if it's normalized, without a doubt. It'll take some time to figure out what a holy symbol should actually do, and also it uses 3 magic rocks, which is super expensive. Anyway, like you could give holy symbol 100 weapon attack or something. Like Bless used to give some attack. You could give Holy Symbol like an upgrade to, I don't know, Priest's holy damage, for example, so that Priest can actually destroy the undead a lot more than other classes would, because Fire Poison and Ice Lightning do get a magic. But even without the holy effect, I feel like Shining Ray should be useful against non-holy monsters, just so that they can party up with everyone else and have that sense of like self-sufficiency. Obviously, they don't need to have plus 50% EXP and a second PC kind of deal. But yeah, this is how bad it feels as priests to not be able to deal with the undead and not even deal with normal monsters. So self-agency in terms of upping their damage would be much needed for this class. And and I'm biased because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna play priests once it's fixed. But like, compared to the other classes you'll see in the rest of this video, you'll notice a huge gap. I mean, Doom is fun, 100% at max, cool, whatever. I think the skill was kind of scuffed from the start anyway, but it is nice to be able to do that, but kind of a long cooldown. Much like Fire Poison's 15-second Poison Mist, and then Dragon is just Dragon. I don't think people care that much about that. I think it just helps with bossing a little. Alright, just an extra follow-up to show the power difference between Priest and Ice Lightning. So with class identity, you expect Priest to be able to do a lot more against these zombies than Ice Lightning. However, due to Ice Lightning's damage, and of course Ice Lightning is supposed to be good at mobbing, that's their identity. But Priest should be the one like destroying these zombies with Shining Ray. And the thing with Shining Ray is, I think this is also in like the original game, it doesn't have a vertical range, while Ice Strike has always had it. That didn't come until after Big Bang for Shining Ray. But Shining Ray is just like really pathetic in comparison. As you can see with my Ice Lightning, I just have so much more range. And that is Ice Lightning's whole deal. But even against these undead, Shining Ray wasn't really doing that much more damage, and it had lower range. So, I don't know, like, kind of suggestions for Shining Ray. Maybe, I don't know, it does 2 lines. If it has really low range, it just does a ton more holy damage. I don't know. But you can kind of see the power gap here. And if you're an Ice Lightning, you can also use Thunder Spear the mob, and that also just does a ton of damage. And doing 2 mobs at once is still pretty good mobbing too, versus Shining Ray, which has like no range and no damage even against undead. So yeah, just another example of Bishop kind of feeling like there's no identity left for it anymore after the changes, and it definitely needs some sort of, I don't know, more party buffs, more undead stuff. Like heal getting nerfed means it can't do more undead stuff, so that's about it. Just a quick example. Alright, in this section, I'll be testing out Ice Lightning. Apparently, Ice Lightning feels pretty good to a lot of people right now, and here you can see some of the skills. I need to use an SP reset. So we're gonna have some SP management problems here. So yeah, this is gonna be my impressions for Ice Lightning compared to others. So the problem with Priest is that it has lost its class identity. And like I said before, I don't mind losing Holy Symbol, but now it's really underwhelming. It doesn't really have an identity, and the party buffs kind of suck for it. And already, the biggest change that I noticed is Thunder Spear for Ice Lightning, and with all of the buffs Ice Lightning can give itself, it does a ton of damage compared to all of the other classes. And it can hit 2 mobs at once, which is pretty cool. I think this is something they should keep. Definitely like super fun to play with. This is like one of the most iconic skills for them. But I mean, Thunder Spear is going crazy there. What about Lightning? Okay, let me see. I feel like the horizontal range is still kind of bad. But I mean, it's fine. Oh wait, never mind. This is fine. Especially with teleport, I think this is okay. Yeah, I think Ice Lightning still has its identity for mobbing. And feels really good. I don't think there's much to change for Ice Lightning, too. Looks like it still has its vertical range for Ice Strike. I guess my only complaint would be Full Beam doesn't really, like, freeze, especially... I think there's a different freeze animation. So that's, like, the blue freeze animation for Ice Strike. Yeah, I think I'm one-shotting it, so I can't really... Wow, she just does too much damage. Let me nerf my damage. See if I can freeze these guys. Oh, I can, okay. Never mind. I like the... I don't know, the freezing is really fun, even though it still applies the blue effects. I don't know. Class identity is going to be a really big thing, and... Yeah, I guess my only complaint would be this doesn't freeze the enemies in place. So... I mean, I don't know how I feel about that, because, like, Ice Lightning is really good, but, like... Just the small things, you know? Make the class feel like it's class. Like ice. I think someone that's playing an ice character should be able to like freeze a monster, you know? But other than that, that's my only complaint for Ice Lightning, and right now it just feels incredible to play. Super high damage, good mobbing, good options. Still has vertical range from Ice Strike. Okay, I just realized post-recording of Ice Lightning that I need to do elemental composition and demonstrate that. So I'll be doing that. Let's see. Apparently it just does giga damage. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, Thunder Spear was already doing a ton, and these are ice resistant too. I don't know if I can find the right mobs. Maybe the Hectors? But yeah, if Ice Lightning is already this strong in the ice area, I think it speaks a lot to it. Alright, this section will cover Fire Poison Mage. This is also a day 2 test, so certain things like mobility were changed for other classes, but mages stayed pretty much the same. As you can see here, as expected from a Fire Poison Mage, fire does a lot of damage to these ice enemies. Makes a lot of sense. Pretty cool. But the issue I personally see with Fire Poison Mage is that I'm not sure where the poison's coming in anymore with this 15-second cooldown on Poison Mist. So as you can see, they added a change where poison does just outright kill the enemy now, which I think is a really good idea. However, I'm not sure if I really feel like I'm playing a Fire Poison Mage rather just a Fire Mage. And mostly because of this long cooldown on Poison Mist. So I think the idea is the poison is supposed to help you more on bosses. But having a 15-second skill for just this mist feels kind of off. You can kind of optimize it with your mobbing, so let's apply a poison mist here, and then go out here and kill some mobs, and then those guys will die. However, you could have just casted an explosion instead. So it just feels like the poison mist wasn't really helping much, and if you do have it linger for a while with a low cooldown, it could become kind of broken. In the old days, you could just spam and fart everywhere, but I'm not sure how the poison really gets played into the mobbing aspects of Fire Poison. So I don't know what specifically I would have as feedback. I think that the Poison Mist probably should not be 15 seconds, because that just feels pretty bad. I'm not sure if there are any 15-second skills in the game. The idea is for bossing, maybe they should use poison more often, but slightly weaker. I don't know what I would do here, but as for mobbing, you just spam explosion and arrow, pretty much. That's about it. I think explosion is fine. nothing really wrong with it. But yeah, I'm just missing that poison part of Fire Poison Mage. And indeed, you could just, let's say you're fighting a boss, you summon this, and it only lasts, how long does it last? 5 seconds, so 10 seconds of downtime on a boss. It just, I'm not sure if this is the way a Fire Poison Mage should be in a fantasy. Also, if you miss, oh, okay, so this is a big problem with a lot of games. When you miss and you have a long cooldown for that ability, it just feels awful. Like, I don't know, it just feels so unfun. So there's a little projectile that shoots out when you use Poison Mist, and if you miss it, you just don't get it, and you have to wait 15 seconds, and you don't get that 5-second persistence of the poison. So if they do want to keep like a cooldown to it, I would probably not have a cooldown unless it hits something. You just keep casting it potentially. But yeah, imagine you're trying to cast this on a monster like right now, and you miss, and now you just can't use your poison at all for 15 seconds. So I didn't realize that Poison Breath had some AoE to it. So that's actually nice. But I'm not sure what that was. Okay, there we go. Like a very horizontal. Okay. I kind of like that. That's for a second job, though. But, yeah. It seems... I think... I don't have a problem with Poison Mist not being spammed across the entire map. So you cover your whole screen with parts. But... for the reasons that I just showed, it just doesn't feel like I'm making use out of the Poison Mist kit. Maybe embossing it's alright, but still feels like... even if you bumped it to 10 seconds of duration, it still would feel a little bit weird, though. And, of course, you don't want this covering the entire map and just killing everything. That would be very broken, but... yeah. I think some adjustments, at least regarding the cooldown for Poison Mist, and maybe not losing or not having a cooldown if you miss your shot would be nice. Forgot to include a core mechanic, which is detonating poison early with explosion. So if you read the text, if you actually read the text like I haven't been doing, it does the remaining damage of the status duration all at once and removes the poison. So I'm actually kind of running low on SP resets, but this should work a bit. So I think the Pepes are resistant to fire, so let me see how this works. I will summon Poison Mist and just see how much that takes the Pepe. 387. About 4 to 5 times. 3 to 5 times, I don't know. And supposedly what Explosion does is you'll get that 3 to 5 tick triggered instantly. So it's kind of hard to test here, but I'll try it. I think that's what... it's kind of hard to tell, but maybe that works. The math checks out there. So I'll try using Poison Breath combo. So let's see how much a Poison Breath does. 140 per tick, and then if I trigger, I should do something like 420. At least something that's a multiple of 140. Actually, I want to keep my damage low so I can actually test it. So here we go again. Poison Breath. 131 per tick. Detonates. I'm still not seeing it. Try again. Maybe someone's seeing it right now and frustrated. I did see a 500 there. I think that's what it was. No poison there. Poison there either. But yeah, I just feel like the detonation doesn't really work that well. Especially if you're trying with Poison Mist and being such a long cooldown. But sometimes it takes a while for the monsters to travel here. I can imagine it's pretty good on bossing, and if you buff Poison Mist and lower the cooldown, it's gonna be severely broken on bossing, but I guess that's kind of the point, is to rely on dots. Damage over time. So, I don't know, maybe just nerfing the poison mist damage, but making it more active, and then it's a really good bossing skill. But yeah, I'm not sure if poison mist should be used while mobbing in some way. I guess it could be for high HP monsters, but yeah, definitely need to rework on poison mist, even with this knowledge of detonating poison, like fire poison does in modern. I'll be testing Hermit for this part of the video. You can see other people's damage. Avenger seems okay, but the Shadow Partner nerf kind of sucks. Or at least I think it does a nerf. It's only plus 40% damage. Does it also use a rock? Oh, it does. Yeah, I feel like... I don't know. I don't know why 40% either. Feels pretty bad. Okay, where's my Meso throw? Okay, level 10. Level 10 it does about 3k, 3.2. How much does a Lucky 7 do? Not 2.8. Not that much more damage. I mean, I guess it does do more damage. Especially if I get to level 20. Do I have a spare SP reset? I do have a spare SP reset. So let's do that. I mean, there's not too much to test here. Oh, and level 30 drain. Or level 28 drain. I guess if you can one-shot with it, you can get some sustain. Yeah, honestly, I don't know much to say, but like, I tested Bishop before this, and all the classes feel a bit nerfed, except for like Ranger and maybe Isolate you. I feel like 40% is not a good number, at least 50% if we're gonna be nerfing Shadow Partner. And I don't know what it was originally, so don't quote me on that. But yeah. Not being able to flash up while mages can spam teleport sucks for Hermit. Alright, this section will be covering Chief Bandit after changes that Nexon Ninja did before the end of the beta test. So Flash Jump no longer has a cooldown, but it's still a bit weak. And Chief Bandit is in a good spot, but I still feel like the class could use some like quality of life adjustments. And I'll go show you them right now. So with Flash Jump, it seems to be like a nerf version of it. It still feels kind of choppy. Definitely not having the cooldown was necessary. I think like this is at the max level 20 Flash Jump, and it feels kind of lame. Someone said it was like level 5, equivalent to the old level 5. I still feel like Chief Bandits, maybe not even Chief Bandit, but Hermit should get the original mobility that it gave. I'm still not sure if Chief Bandit should be having Flash Jump, but for now, Chief Bandit feels really good. There's still minor adjustments, so the other one I'm going to cover is Band of Thieves. With Band of Thieves, it feels like the range for it is so incredibly choppy and small. As you can see, I can't even hit the monsters here. And it doesn't work while the monster is behind you, so that kind of sucks. When you do get a clump, it does work pretty well, but I would probably, in my opinion, adjust the hitbox. It has like a weird... So close range to get the first activation is like really bad. But if you have like a cluster of mobs, the range gets extended, which does sound like a good idea, but I don't know, it just feels really bad to use. As you can see here, like I'm just like missing entirely. I don't know what the original classic was like, but I thought it also hit monsters behind you, and kind of Band of Thieves are just covering your back sort of deal. Assaulter now works while jumping, but it still feels a little bit tight. If they do keep Flash Jump on Chief Bandits, then I think it's fine right now. But I heard this suggestion that people were making, and it allowing people to use Assaulter without a monster. And that way Assaulter becomes a mobility skill for Chief Bandits. And they don't need Flash Jump because they didn't have Flash Jump originally. However, Assaulter would quickly become... I don't know, it's still a pretty good mobbing skill already without that change. But yeah, if they keep buffing Assaulter, Chief Bandit might be a little bit busted. Oh, too busted, I don't know. But yeah, personally, I think that's fine. Making Assaulter usable without a monster and then just getting rid of Flash Jump. But if they do plan on keeping Flash Jump, then maybe Assaulter is fine as it is. That's my opinion. But I don't really look forward to playing, I'll probably play a Hermit, but I think this level 20 Flash Jump is still a bit too small. But I do understand they're trying to slow down the pace of the game, but I don't know if Hermit needs to be slowed down. So we'll check out the hitbox of Mesos Explosion. So in original Classic, I believe you can trigger Mesos Explosion at any time, but now it requires a monster to be nearby the Mesos. Like so. And if it's not close enough, it won't activate. I feel like the hitbox and range of it is kind of small. I don't know if their idea of Mesos Explosion to be like a bossing skill only, but yeah, it feels a little bit weird. And Chief Bandit is already doing so well right now. I'm not sure where to put this, but yeah, I do think Mesos Explosion shouldn't have that limitation of blowing up Meso only when there's a monster, and the range for it to stack seems a little bit tight. So if there's a ton of Mesos right here, and then I try to blow up that sector, that was not bad, but it only covered half of the Mesos over here, so I don't know. I think slight hitbox adjustments on Mesos Explosion and just letting people use it whenever. I can't use it right now. But maybe it's not too bad to have it only when a monster's there. That way, if you're casting it and the monster runs away, you're not wasting the Meso on the ground. But I think that things that limit your hitbox kind of just don't feel fluid, I guess. But yeah, I just feel like that just restricts a degree of freedom that you have to use the skill, and doesn't feel great. But I mean, it's not the worst thing, and I can see some sense into it, so that your Mesos actually get used efficiently when blowing up stuff, and not just blowing it up right now before a monster was spawning. So yeah, that's the only adjustments I have for Chief Bandit. Even though it's in a good spot, I think that Band of Thieves could take another look. Assaulter, maybe just get rid of Flash Jump if you do buff Assaulter's mobility. If you don't, then I think it's fine right now. And Mesos Explosion hitboxes, the proximity requirements of the monsters and the range feels a little bit short and restrictive. That's pretty much it about Chief Bandit. Not really damage problems, it's more quality of life and hitbox problem. Alright, so now I'm going to be testing Dragon Knight, which is supposedly the best out of all the changes. I'll be using these Yetis as a test. I mean, Piercing Crusher feels fine. Feels pretty good. Just like it was. And then, I'm not sure if Dragon Fury was buff, but it's one of the strongest mobbing skills right now. And if you saw in my next or previous clip, the Hermit struggled to one-shot the Yetis with Avenger and Shadow Partner. But Dragon Knight could just go rushing around and just smacking everything and one-shotting them here with level 70 gear already. So they're pretty strong. Even though they're doing almost equivalent damage, feels like Dragon Knight just does everything pretty well. Pretty tanky too, drains HP. And this is a really fast cast animation. And combined with Rush, you definitely have some decent mobility now. I don't know how I feel about Rush being 3 seconds. I think it's fine since you don't really want warriors to be super mobile. Maybe 2 seconds would be more fun. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the test of Dragonite, but you can probably see the difference between Dragonite and Hermit at least, as well as Priest. Priest still does more damage per hit on mobs, on the zombies, than Warrior, so that's good at least. I feel like Dragonite's still in a good spot. It doesn't feel like it's changed that much. Spear Master is kind of broken with 20% crit rates. And they do get the Dragon Blood attack buff. So yeah, I mean, of all the classes, I think Dragonite is probably the better one, or probably the best overall. But I guess we'll see with more testing. I don't know if there's much I can add, because I didn't really play Dragonite back. But just these simple tests can be enough. Oh, I did want to max Dragon Roar, just to see how that feels. And I missed, and there's a 50-second cooldown. Alright, maybe that's for bossing, anyway. Here's Dragon Shout. And you get stunned for 4. Is that 4, or is it 2? I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. Range 400%? Feels like you just be better using Dragon Fury. Yeah. I mean, you don't want Dragon Roar to do a map AoE anymore, but like, it does feel kind of lame. Like, why bother kind of deal? Oh, stun for 2 seconds. I think the idea of Dragon Roar is to be able to do a ton of AoE while sacrificing a lot of HP, but you're sacrificing a lot of HP for like no reason. Instead of just using Dragon Fury, which barely uses any and can one-shot the mobs. So maybe like a potential change would be more range for Dragon Roar, I guess. But I think their goal is to slow down everything, but honestly, I feel like my 9 to 5 slows down things enough already. But yeah, Dragonite's looking pretty okay, pretty good compared to everyone else at least. I just wish Dragon Roar was a little bit more interesting to use over Dragon Fury, but that's all the feedback I would have for DK. Alright, I'll be checking out Crusader in this section. There's really no point in using a sword right now because Axe Mastery gives you bleed. And the whole idea of Crusader is that it's supposed to be a good single target class with combo attack, but it seems like combo attack doesn't really increase your damage that much, only by 20%. And Shout kind of sucks. It does 50%, so you don't really like get any mobbing out of it. So yeah, I'm not sure. It lowers the evasion. Yeah, I don't know about this. Shout, I feel like Shout should be like one of Crusader's AoE skills, like main AoE skills, but as you can see, it's more of a debuff than anything right now. And because we have an axe, we could check out Coma. Not sure. I can attack multiple enemies, but I'm just using Slash Blast. Build combos, and then I guess you stack enough combo to cast Coma. Honestly, Crusader was screwed from the start because of how bad it was in the original Classic, but yeah, this does feel pretty bad. I'm not sure. I don't think next one changed that much other than nerfing the combo attack damage, most likely. Hendrix seems to do a lot of damage compared to Coma at max. I'll probably have to take a look at that. Maybe where this is the single target stuff comes in? Don't know. Yeah, that's definitely a lot more damage than I expected. It looks like swords are still pretty good for single target at least. But yep, not sure if there's much to stake here. Other than it hasn't changed that much. It just seems to do a little less damage. Kind of stinks. Whereas Dragon... Oh, the other problem is we're comparing this to Dragon Knights as well as White Knights. And if you're a Dragon Knight, you just press one skill and you just one-shot 3 mobs, whereas you're stuck with a 20% upgraded Slash Blast, a Crusader. Just as another follow-up to the Crusader section, I was talking to some people, and I think that one of the fixes that Crusader could have for mobbing is to just get Brandish early, so the force job skill, and give it some range. As you can see, Crusader is stuck with using Slash Blast, but Brandish is kind of the upgrade to Slash Blast, so... Yeah, I think that would just be really nice for Crusader, and they can actually have, like, an upgraded mobbing skill like everyone else does when they get to 3rd job, instead of this sadness. In this section, I'll be covering White Knights and a little bit of Crusader versus Dragon Knights. So this is day 2 of testing, where Nexon did a ninja patch, and Rush now only has a 1-second cooldown instead of the 3 it had originally, and that feels pretty good for warriors. The thing that I'm not really getting, or that feels like it's a problem from original Classic, I didn't play warrior that much, but one of the major problems that I feel right now with the current system is there's not enough SP to go around at first job with how high level these are. And so Dragon Knights, which gets a new attack, can respec Power Strike and Slash Blast off and reallocate their points into improved HP recovery and max HP increase or Iron Body. Whereas Crusader and White Knight still need to level Power Strike and Crusader Slash Blast. So I hope that the first job SP does get fixed, so that should fix that issue between these classes. I'm not very good representative for warriors or played warriors that much, but I do feel like people were saying White Knight felt good and it's much better than original Classic because you don't have to, like, the charges are like pretty much guaranteed. The one thing that I feel still is missing, even with the Rush edition, is the initial hits of Charge Blow. So Charge Blow will replace Slash Blast for White Knight, but I feel like, as you can see right there, I feel like that Charge Blow should have hit this monster. So maybe like a slightly extended hitbox could work. Charge Blow does have some AoE. If you do hit the monster, it could hit another monster in range, so let me try and demonstrate that. But I just feel like it's still kind of underwhelming. It's definitely an improvement over original Classic, but I still think they need a little bit more in terms of AoE. So as you can see there, it kind of extended my range with the elemental attack, and the AoE for the initial hit up is what I'm looking for. Like that little bolt that extends, and maybe this could extend out just a little bit more. Even with Rush, it feels kind of choppy and tight like that. I feel like that should have hit as well. And compared to other classes which just don't really have to put any effort into like aiming their attack, feels like warriors have to put a little bit too much brain energy versus other characters. And that's kind of the way to describe it. So I still think while these changes are good, especially with like Threaten and Rush, I still think that White Knight, in comparison to Dragon Knights, still use a little bit more deep dive into their element applications. So like, let's say in the fantasy setting, you enhance your hammer with freaking lightning. You expect it to have like a slightly bigger hitbox than just the weapon itself. For example, the Power Strike hitbox and the Slash Blast hitbox. So that would be my only changes for White Knights, and that just made me realize how much Crusader feels terrible because they are still stuck on Slash Blast. entirely, and their slash blast doesn't really get upgraded. They just get more damage, and they can use coma once every 5 hits or something in Bandit. So yeah, kind of a combo Crusader White Knights review. I still feel like they could use a bit more, and I feel like this class would not be popular, so why the heck not just give them just a slight bit more into their elemental, like, fantasy thing. I mean, it has some of it here with that extension, but the initial hit is what feels kind of off or really underwhelming compared to other classes. So yeah, that would be the only adjustment for White Knight that I have. Okay, so I'll be demonstrating Ranger, and this is one of the classes that feels pretty good, but I still think it needs some adjustment. You can see my skills here. A lot of people were worried about wind step, but it's not a flash jump. It's just like a little tiny dash, like a rush, where you flip over. It might increase your overall speed a little bit, I guess, if you're traveling, so I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I think it's perfectly fine, in my opinion. But anyway, let's get into Ranger. So overall, I do like the feel. So Strafe is pretty good, has good range, and it's a really fast attack. This is actually not a Ranger thing, but I think there's something wrong with Arrow Bomb, and I'm not sure what it is. But I think there's like a delay or something from the explosion, or it's not like reactive enough or something like that. But hopefully they fix whatever it is. I haven't been able to like really pinpoint what it was, but people who play Ranger probably know that. Anyway, the biggest problem with Ranger right now, well, actually, no, okay, so Ranger is actually fun to play. As you can see, I'm using Inferno here. It has dots. And these guys are ice monsters, so it's going to do a lot of damage. Good range, good AoE. Fatal attack's pretty cool. I mean, final attack's pretty cool. There's that follow-up attack you'll see. Not much to say about the Hawk. And then arrow range. So, the problem with arrow range is that, like many things you'll be seeing in this video, is that it has a cooldown of 5 seconds, and it just feels kind of pointless to use or level. Puppet using a summoning rock, I don't know if that's always been the case, but it does feel pretty bad. And then the biggest problem with Ranger right now, like, it's good, it's just Mortal Blow seems to be making Ranger weaker or more annoying to play. So you'll see whenever I use a skill, I have a chance to just do like one single shot with no effect. So I'm spamming Inferno right now. Eventually, I should proc a Mortal Blow at close range. I might have seen it already when I was testing stuff. It only activates at close range. There it is. 2.8k. Right there, 2.7k again. Like, I'm just casting Inferno, but sometimes if I'm too close, it'll cast Mortal Blow, and I just... like, killing the monster at 50% HP with a lower... at a 20% success rate just feels like a waste. Like, it's actually inhibiting you if you level it. Because you can't cast... stuff like Inferno. And I wonder... I think it affects Strafe, it affects Bomb Arrow as well. It affects everything. So let me try Bomb Arrow again. There it is. So yeah, Mortal Blow kind of sucks. Apparently this is a new change too. It didn't used to do this, so I think it reverts or another look at Mortal Blow being like a passive of some sort instead of like an active. Well, it is a passive, but like it's a passive that overtakes your active, which is really frustrating if you're trying to cast Inferno. And it wasn't in the original game too. I mean, in concept, it looks cool, but in actual play, it like sucks. And it's a boring arrow anyway. It's not like a cool effect. Just like a pathetic normal attack, pretty much. But yeah, it does feel fun to play Rangers, so I think they got Ranger overall right, but definitely still need some tweaks here, in my opinion. And Windstep is just fine. I don't think it's gonna be... People who looked at the data mine stuff were really worried, but I do not think... Most people aren't gonna play Archer anyway, so I think it's fine. And one of the topics I want to discuss is class identity, and I just feel like Ranger still has its class identity, and everyone else, like, everyone can have a mobility skill, it just needs to be class specific, and I think that's fine for Wind Step. That's pretty much it for Ranger. Overall, pretty good, and just those few adjustments would be nice. Alright, for some extra context, this is day 2 of the test where Nexon did a hotfix on some of the cooldown issues that a lot of classes have and their mobility. So as you can see here, I'm going to be doing Sniper, and I did Ranger the other day where there wasn't mobility issues and cooldown issues, so you can see Evasion Step is 1 second cooldown now instead of the 3 or 5 that it was, so now it's actually usable. And a lot of people were worried about the skill, but it doesn't really like move you that much. I think it's just completely fine. Most people weren't gonna play Archer anyway. And in the previous sections, Arrow Eruption had like a 5-second cooldown. Now it doesn't have any, and it feels a lot better. As for Sniper itself, I know Strafe is not going to be a problem. It's good. It's probably going to be one of their main bossing attack. I mean, it's going to be one of their main hunting attacks for like higher HP mobs anyway. And it has like fast animation speed. So I'll be focusing mostly on Blizzard and Arrow Eruption. And I don't remember if I mentioned that Summoning Rock for Puppet feels kind of bad. I did mention that Mortal Blow kind of sucks. It just needs to be changed to something else, because it just actively inhibits you from casting whatever your skill was, like Blizzard. And the other problem with testing Blizzard here is that most of these monsters are probably ice resistant. I would say the only change for Blizzard, in my opinion, is just like for Ice Lightning. I think they should still stick with the freezing of monsters. As a crossbowman, you kind of don't want monsters to be able to approach you, and I see that with like the enemy speed reduction skill. So I think freezing, while it could be OP, I think it just fits the theme of the class and it's just fun. So yeah, that would be my only feedback for Blizzard. As you can see, the Yetis reduce a lot, but the Hectors don't seem to. I wonder if the Hectors are ice resistant. But anyway, yeah, I wouldn't worry about archers getting mobility. I feel like most people weren't gonna play archer anyway, but I think crossbowmen might become more popular with all these changes, and I think it was necessary, in my opinion. So yeah, nothing too much here. It seems fine. Strafe is still probably gonna be one of their main mobbing skills anyway. Arrow Eruption and Arrow Rain, giving them some AoE is not bad. Especially since Sniper doesn't really have like a close range attack skill. And if you really want one, you can get it. The damage does seem a little bit, I'm not sure how I feel. I think it's more in line with a lot of other classes anyway. And the mages, well, at least Ice Lightning in particular does more damage per hit. So I think it's okay. And yeah, here's Evasion Step again. Oh, and also, since this is day 2, they also fixed the iframe, so after getting hit, so it used to be 1 second, now it's 1.5. And you can feel the difference. You can walk through enemies a little bit more now, and I think it's more closer aligned to original classic, which is nice, and should help warriors and everyone else out. So that's it for crossbowmen. And Sniper, I don't know if they still use Iron Arrow for grinding at this point, but maybe when you're just level 70. The one thing we can't really test is like the MP consumption and like scrolled armors and all that, and like progression. So I guess you could just spam resets. So once you reach level 70, you can only add like 1 point into these skills. So I mean, I guess the whole point is just to test their job overall right now, so I'm not really worried. But Sniper does feel a little bit more stiff, but I think with the Arrow Eruption change, it's not bad. And yeah, just want that Blizzard to be fun. To close out this video, I'll quickly go over all the feedback I submitted into the form that Nexon sent out. Some of the feedback here is my own opinion, as well as some ideas I took from reading Reddit or discussing on Discord. You might be wondering why I spent so much time doing this. Well, number one, I want to have fun, and number two, I actually want to get better at character design. So I think it helps to just like throw ideas out there and discuss with others, and then compile them. All right, so let's start with priest. So you might have seen earlier that holy symbol at level 1 is like a 15-minute heaven's door or a self revive if you die, and it has like a 45-minute cooldown. Pretty much just expensive and not useful. 3 magic rocks. So the solution, the best solution I've seen so far, is maybe this is a party skill that gives everyone a slight HP MP recovery buff. So like everyone gets plus 10, plus 20% healing from potions. Just so that it's not worth making a mule or an alt, not an alt character, but like a second account and taking up the 6th party slot just for the buff. So when it was plus 50% EXP, that was extremely broken. I just don't think any game should have or require you to, or strongly suggest you to have a second PC up just to buff your mate. So for feedback number 2, Shining Ray's damage was super underwhelming, as you saw in the first part of the video, even against the undead. I think it's 20 to 30% more damage against the undead, especially when compared to other classes mobbing. I think the simple solution is just to buff the base damage enough so that even as a bishop, you can just join any grinding party against any sort of monster and just contribute like any other character. And you'll still have that advantage on undead of like 20 to 30%. So if you buff the base damage, you buff both. Okay, so my other feedback was the heal was being nerfed like multiple ways. So 200% to 100% recovery rates. And then it can only damage monsters every other heal. So as you saw earlier in the gameplay, it felt like forced server lag, which felt pretty bad. I would just say revert the monster damage cooldown so that you can keep spamming it against them, but keep it at 100% recovery rate. And I feel like heal is just one of those funny OP character identity things of MapleStory Classic. So I feel like if you just nerf that, Priest loses like a ton of its class identity already. Like even the holy symbol being gone, like I think heal was probably the worst change for me. Actually, I wanted the plus 50% EXP gone anyway, but I think you know what I mean. But like you kind of want the classes to be busted in their own way. You just don't want them to be all, you want to be balanced, but not all the same, which is hard. So, and I think heal was already doing something really fun. So I just hope that goes back to where it was. Okay, so the Doom cooldown is 30 seconds long. I feel like it was just not worth the SP. It was actually really good, especially against difficult mobs. So I think like 15, 10-second cooldown might be better. All right, so Ice Lightning, which was great in like an S tier class. I still have a few things for the feedback regarding Ice Lightning. I don't really care about damage as so much the class identity, as you'll see in the video as well. My number one feedback was that freezing mobs now just slows them a lot. But like, it just feels weird to play an Ice Lightning Mage and have like so many ice things and not be able to just freeze the monster. And there's also different slows like from Bowman. I just feel like if you revert to the original of freezing monsters in place, or like extreme speed reduction if we can't get that, that it would fit like the fantasy setting a little bit better. It was just fun, you know? And even though it might have been broken freezing like super hard mobs, you still have to kill them. So I don't know. I just feel like this is one of the things that that I really didn't enjoy is just having another slow from ice when they're already slow. The other feedback I had was for elemental composition. Also, this is iconic. I just still have like Dre 86 videos in my mind of him freezing mobs in Ludi. I feel like we just cannot lose that. But anyway, that's my opinion. So my second feedback is elemental composition. So all it does is it combines 2 elements, and I don't know if there are any mobs that are actually weak to both at once. The original one applied status effects, I mean, it does a lot of nice damage, but I'd rather have the status effects than just a flat damage. And I think that's just what you want from a mage. So just maybe nerf the damage and add the status effects back. For fire poison, also felt pretty good, except poison cloud, which is like the main thing. It just feels too long at 15 seconds and only lasts 5. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you miss, then it's a 15-second cooldown, which just feels like not fun. I feel like they just want it to be a bossing thing only, but I think it's just more fun if you could just use your skills a bit more as your class. And you're a fire poison mage, not just a fire explosion. It did do a lot of damage with the 15-second cooldown, but I'd rather have it do it less and then have a smaller cooldown. Same thing for elemental composition. I think it applied poison or something. I'd just rather have the status effects from a status attack than just straight up damage, personally. All right, so Hermit overall felt all right. Some people are gonna think it's really weak, but I think it's fine after looking at like gameplay. It's actually extremely easy. Like one of the easiest fixes, I think, is to just. I feel like Hermit should still keep their mobility, their original mobility. It was broken, but now that everyone like Warrior has a 1 second cooldown rush, everyone else has some sort of mobility. We still have teleport spam. So I think Hermit's identity was flash jump rather than like something like Avenger. So I think just going back would be fine because everyone else got a mobility upgrade. And then Shadow Partner, I think, well, I checked the Big Bang or pre-Big Bang original, it was at 50%. It's now 40%. Some people thought Hermit felt a bit weak, and it was the case if you look at the Avenger hits. I think if you just bring it back to 50%, it would put it back with the rest of the classes. And 40% just feels kind of weird in terms of class design wise. I feel like Shadow Partner would just make sense to be half of your damage rather than 40%. And there's just like other random stuff like Paul Guard and Revive. It just does not seem to fit with the identity of the class. A Hermit is like the mobility class, and avoidability and evasion makes more sense for it. For Chief Bandits, Band of Thieves, if you look closely at the video or as I described it, it feels bad due to small hitbox of the dagger swing, and it only attacks in the front. So the dagger swing might be fine, but these two requirements combined just made it feel not worth using or clunky to use. I think it's just fine to have the original hitbox where the Band of Thieves can attack from the back. They kind of support you. Like the Band of Thieves are literally behind and there to support you kind of deal. So I would just like a reversion there. And then my number 2 feedback for Chief Bandit is the flash jump. So personally, I don't care if it has flash jump, but I feel like flash jump should still stay with Hermits. However, I think Chief Bandit could use Assaulter as its mobility. This was like this was a suggestion that a lot of people made actually, and people who actually play Chief Bandits. Right now, Assaulter requires a monster for you to take advantage of its teleports. What if you just remove the requirement entirely, and then Chief Bandits can spam Assaulters for mobbing and getting around? It still locks you in place a bit, so it's not super broken mobility, even though it'll be really good mobbing. But I feel like that would encourage a lot of people to go over to Chief Bandit instead of Hermit. And now Chief Bandit has its own identity without needing flash. My third feedback is Meso Explosion or Meso Explosion requires monsters to be in range to explode. I think I see the idea of what they were going for. I think they wanted you to like not waste your Meso and like miss an explosion. But I feel like that is just a little bit too restrictive. It feels a little bit forced. The only other skill that really requires a monster is Assaulter. So I don't know. I just think I prefer the freedom to use it whenever and wherever. And then if I miss, I miss on the mob. And you get Mesos from just attacking the monsters anyway. So yeah, just a small change here in my opinion. I really like that degree of freedom. And it's hard to miss on a boss. Alright, so from Dragon Knight, you can tell Dragon Knight is doing pretty well for itself. My only minor complaint is that Dragon Wars doesn't really seem worth using. I think it uses like 900 HP, and then stuns you for 2 seconds and costs a lot of resources. It's just faster and cheaper to use Piercing Crusher or something. So maybe have it hit 6 to 8 mobs, and then maybe just stun yourself for 1 second so you can use it once in a while. But Dragon Knight's already a step above everyone else, and this is just for making one of their iconic skills still stay iconic. Alright, so Crusader. Let me get this. Let me list my bias. I do want to play Crusader if I make a warrior. However, at its current states, there's just no reason to play it over Dragon Knight except for maybe single target DPS. But it's not worth suffering Slash Blast until level 120. So this is not really the fault of Nexon changes now. It was just a flaw of the class design from the start. The very original, it was just screwed from the start. So one of the problems is that there's like an SP problem with first job. Dragon Knight can just respec first job skills for more HP and defense. Hopefully they fix that, and this won't be here. My solution for making Crusader not feel bad and having its own identity is to have like a weaker version of Brandish. So something like Twin Strike, maybe just hits 2 times up to 3 enemies, so it's slightly better than Slash Blast. I think Brandish only hits 2 enemies. But something like that would convince me to switch from Dragon Knight to Crusader. If you have a double hits, you get 2 orbs each cast, which makes Coma and Panic more fun. Crusader is already good on single target damage, but I'm actually not worried about damage so much as to not just be using Slash Blast until level 120. So number one's a bold ask. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't like it, but like who's playing Crusader? Everyone knows Crusader sucks. The class was designed from to be the original class design was just so bad from the start. I mean, come on. But this would be my opinion of what would convince me to swap over. But I know that it's a bold ask, so just throwing that out there. A less bold solution, which I also got from like other people's feedback, is to just give like Coma a big hitbox and Panic. So one that's like as big as its circle. Right now, if you use Coma or Panic, it's just like a normal slash, and it gives you like a giant circular AoE or like spell effect. So maybe just make the spell effect bigger. So like maybe the Crusader's like doing 360 slash or something. I don't know in that bubble, but yeah, I think if you make Coma or Panic as big as its circle or just a bigger hitbox, that would make the Crusader purists who don't want like a weaker version of Brandish happy, and I would not swap for this chain. But yeah, the whole reason you play Crusader was because of Brandish, but we're gonna be stuck in third job for a while, so I would just like a nerf version of that. That would be fun, in my opinion. The Sword Master is almost useless. I honestly don't care that much because of the stabbing and slashing thing. I'm still gonna play a sword. If I was playing Crusader, I would still use a sword just because Doombringer looks cool. Even though Axe Mastery is like 10% more damage. Okay, so number 3 for shouts. It just does not seem very useful at all. There's like it serves like no purpose, which kind of sucks. And kind of sucked in the original game. But yeah, I don't think stunning monsters is something you want to do as Crusader. One idea I heard was that maybe it's a taunt, so that monsters will be more aggroed to you. I don't know if that would work, but maybe it would if it has like a lot of range. Since the whole idea of Crusader is to gather monsters and be close range single target DPS. So I didn't add that in here, but that's another idea. And then maybe it just gives some sort of debuff to the monsters or boss. So usually when you're talking about shouts in games, they don't really outright kill monsters. They use to like debuff or demoralize people. So yeah, that's just my opinion on how shout should be reworked. White Knight is also here with Crusader because it's kind of in the same boat as versus when you're comparing to Dragon Knight. Now it's not really have its own identity. It's still like Charge Blast is like Slash Blast plus and it kind of it's the idea is nice, but it doesn't really feel like much of an upgrade. The reason why is because, again, like Crusader, the weapon swing hitbox does not really increase that much. And if you're charging elements with onto your weapon, you'd think that your hitbox would increase a little bit more when you're casting the skill. The AoE after you hit a monster that extends out is really nice. However, I just feel like they just need a buff to the initial swing hitbox. And I think that would be it for White Knight. They have some nice debuffs, but yeah, I just don't want another version of Slash Blast. And there's more depth that other White Knights would know about the charge thing and the skill points. I don't know about that, so I won't speak on it. Okay, so Ranger, for Mortal Blow, that is the arrow that has a chance to one-shot the monster under like 50% HP. Believe that's their solution to replacing bow whacking. But in my gameplay video, you might see that because of the activation range for it, it can just sometimes overwrite the skill you're casting. So like if you shoot an Infernal arrow, you'll just shoot a Mortal Blow arrow instead of whacking the mob. And it just feels weird to cast and not get what you intended. I just prefer the bow whack instead. It's just really not worth your SP. And if you're farming monsters, well, Mortal Blow, the idea of Mortal Blow is to farm monsters, but it requires the monsters to be under a certain amount of HP, so it kind of just kind of stinks. I think it's creative. I just don't think in practice it didn't seem to be fun. Um, so maybe just shove it back to fourth job. And maybe bow whacking might be better off with bow mastery, or like maybe lowering the range. So like let's say 1 meter in front of you, you'll still whack, but like 2 meters you won't anymore. I don't know. But that would be my suggestion. And for the straw puppet, it just doesn't, it feels weird to have a summoning rock, which is kind of expensive for archers, like frequently moving it around and repositioning. I just don't think this is a skill that should require a rock, and archer is one of the least popular class anyway. Gonna be assassins, dragon knights, and priests again once they get buffs. So yeah, I feel like at least just let them have the straw puppet. Okay, for sniper, so ranger feels pretty good overall, especially with the arrow rain not requiring a cooldown anymore. But for sniper, it feels like a bit underwhelming, even though they both have strafe, which has a fast animation time. And my number one change would be to have Blizzard align with the freeze of Ice Lightning. So, I mean, bowmen already apply a slow, so when you apply a second slow from freeze, it just feels kind of redundant or weird. And because Sniper already feels kind of underwhelming and Inferno is kind of nice for Ranger, I just feel like at least the fun factor of freezing monsters should go to Crossbowmen, just like Ice Lightning. Again, like these classes are not going to be that popular anyway. At least give them that. So now the feedback is Straw Puppet, Summoning Rock, which is super expensive. Not going to go over that again. All right, so that's all for the class feedback that I submitted. This is going to be related to all of the other types of feedback. So overall, what they tried to do in this test was to slow down the pace by adding cooldowns, lowering the mobbing potential, so like from 6 monsters to 4. But I feel like Original Classic was kind of slow enough already. And with everyone being older, I think I saw a poll on Reddit. Like most players were 30s to 40s, and the other majority was 20s to 30s. So I think just slowing down too much is probably not the best with more responsibilities that everyone has. But on the bright side, GMS team on Classic seems a bit independent. They were subject to feedback, they made hot fixes during the test, and their jobs aren't even immediately being put into launch anyway. And you can always make changes later, especially when it comes to classes. So that's why I wanted to discuss the harder stuff, which is new content and economy. So because they nerfed and slowed everything down, nothing really feels rewarding, especially the LNAF monsters. I think someone calculated that you had to be like 50 levels above or something to be net positive in LNAF, so I think they'll probably just take another look at that. Um, and for level 1 to 30, so I've in these tests, I've never had a problem like getting through to 30 by doing a few quests and not taking touch damage as ranged. I'm sure it's different if I'm warrior or bandit using double step, but I did see a lot of like more casual players end up running out of potions and having to melee and rely on the basic attack, and that just kind of sucks for the party. So obviously, solutions would just be buff quest resource rewards. I think it was Shumi or something. She gives less blue potions than she did in the original classic. So maybe just bringing that back at least. And then maybe another solution would be alchemy. That would be really hard to balance, but that could be interesting. So just be able to craft potions like you are with armor and use like ETCs from monsters that you don't just sell for Meso. And yeah, I just talk about level 100, not even that positive in terms of grind. And we did have unscrolled gear, so that's another factor as well. Okay, for citizenship, my positive for citizenship is I do like the idea of housing and infinite quest supply. So if you keep playing the game, you're going to run out of quests eventually and just have nothing but grinding mobs and maybe PQs. So I think original RuneScape has some sort of housing thing that has a lot of customization. So I just like the idea of housing just being like an optional, minimal, very, very minimal buff or advantage for just playing often. And hopefully the houses are more customizable, so you can have some like creativity builds, maybe even like build type voxel game, so that you can show off other players or just mess around. I know some people don't really like dailies or weeklies. I'm okay with it as long as it's not like some extreme advantage. Weeklies, I'm more like aligned to. I always like bossing with my friends weekly. Just don't like huge commitments, but yeah, dailies are fine. Maybe like make I don't know if I mentioned it here, but maybe make dailies like really weak, and then maybe weeklies are like all right. I don't know, but yeah, I do think it's a net positive for the game. I think we need stuff because we're gonna get bored without the additional content like this. The one negative that everyone's been talking about is that with citizenship, you only have quests available and it's locked to a specific town. So let's say you're training your main at Ludibrium, at Ludi. In order for you to finish the citizenship quest on your main, you'll have to constantly go back and forth, which is a lot of time travel. And the alternative would just be parked in an Alton town and you just can't play your main to upgrade it, which kind of stinks. The solution that people thought of is like having a citizenship board that could be accepted anywhere within MapleStory. So like maybe the free markets or just in all towns. You get a list of quests you can do. And one of the quests could be something like collect 30 teddy bear cottons from Ludibrium and submit it to the board, and it will be sent to Nemesis. So that's kind of like a fun little like world building thing. They want teddy bear fluffs for the children. I don't know. And it removes the need for your alt. I thought that was a really good idea that someone came up with, and I kind of expanded on it. One of the quests was 100 green mushroom caps, and you get like 20 potions, 350 mesos, and 500 contribution EXP, which I don't know how much that's worth, but that was one of the dailies. And I did this quest, by the way, and people in my party were asking for it, so I greeted the green mushrooms in nearby and reported to them, and no one wanted to do it. So I don't know, 100 of them seems a little bit high for a daily, especially when you're competing or party grinding. You have to like share, I don't know, and you have to split the map. Something about this didn't feel right, at least in terms of rewards, at least. This felt more like a weekly. Anyway, regarding party and social interaction, so the classic events were a lot of fun. You can see in my other video, I did like a 6-minute nostalgia compilation. I don't not much to say there, but they were fun. The invasions and all that, just like original classic. And I don't know what the party EXP percentage is, but I think it's fine right now. I don't think it needs to be nerfed anymore like it has been. It made like previous unviable maps like El Forest, you can see here. So solo trading this map is kind of awful. But if you have a party, you're only responsible for like 1 or 2 sections, and now this map is suddenly viable. And then as for the negative, I only did KPQ in the first test, not the second test. Didn't have the time to. It still seems like a net negative, and the reason you do it now is for the bonus stage, which is the best part of it. But I don't know if attaching a 15-20 minute stage is a good idea for party quests. I know it's optional, so I probably just whenever I do this PQ, it probably won't be for the bonus stage, but I feel like they're counting the bonus stage as part of the EXP, and it just makes I don't know the PQ itself feel worse. Hopefully they can make it a net positive of doing the PQ at level 21. Obviously, it shouldn't be as strong as grinding, but still good for some resources like HP MP, Mesos, gear, and some EXP. And obviously, I want to see like Genesis PQ, Orbis PQ, and even PQ in Forgotten Hollow potentially. And another thing they could do to encourage party grind is have more kill quests, so like those Hunt 999 green mushroom quests, easier done with a party. So just encourages people to party up. To close out, I'll just throw in the controller support. I think that's a good idea. It's not in the original classic, but these are one of the changes that I'm really happy with. I didn't actually use it that much, but it does feel a little bit less mentally taxing than keyboard and mouse, and you can play it from like your bed or whatever. So yeah, good to see that, and I think they're working on improving it. So yeah, that's all my overall feedback that I submitted. So let me know if you have any other ideas, because I might read them even though I can't submit them now. But yeah, I'm still excited. I was watching my video of a compilation. There's a lot of things I need to do, and I do have a lot of worries like the future and whether I'll have time to play and what happens after level 50. But I'm still excited, and they can always make change. So thanks for watching if you stuck around this long.